Hello, this is Dr. Mercola, and today I'm here with Charlie Brown. And you might think that Charlie Brown's a cartoon character, but he absolutely isn't. He is a tireless advocate for the elimination of mercury in our environment. And I'll talk about some of the details in a moment, but just want to paint a broad picture that mercury is an incredibly potent neurotoxin. And it doesn't take much to cause serious damage. It's a poison. It is an absolute poison. And so much so that if you were to take the amount of mercury in a thermometer, that you see, that's typically used, and it was to fall into a small lake, that lake would be shut down because of environmental hazards. Yet, loads more than that are regularly put into our mouth. And today, one of the things we're going to really focus on is the importance of informing you and the general community about what dentists are putting into our mouth. There's this almost borders on a conspiracy of silence to let people, to not tell them the truth about what's in there. So, and it really is the mercury amalgams, and that is really an issue that Charlie has been spearheading and leading the effort to remove them, or at least first inform people that's what they are, to give them a choice, and then to secondarily eliminate them from the armamentarium that's currently being used in dentistry. So welcome, Charlie.
Well, good, Joe, and thank you for the message you continue to give worldwide on the need for informed health choices and healthy choices for our lives and the lives of our families.
Well, let's talk about this issue of essentially informed consent, because there's this, the typical person who goes to the dentist is going to, unfortunately, dental cavities is sort of pervasive, and almost it's a very unusual individual who doesn't suffer some type of dental cavity that's going to require a repair. And the typical repair, the least expensive one that's typically provided, is an amalgam filling. So there's this movement, essentially, to let people know that amalgam or silver fillings are truly mercury. The majority of the material in a mercury filling is mercury. And unlike if we pick up a nutritional facts label on a food, it lists the most common ingredient first. But when dentists refer to the fillings, the amalgam fillings, it's called silver, even though there's some silver, it's a small amount. They hardly ever tell people that it's mercury. And in fact, it's even worse. Isn't there a movement to limit dentists from telling patients that there's mercury in amalgam fillings?
Yes, the American Dental Association is basically a gigantic fraud agent when it comes to amalgam, because for years they promoted amalgam as silver fillings, and they're not. They're not. It's a gigantic consumer fraud perpetuated by thousands of dentists in the United States who use the word silver fillings when by far the most prevalent material is mercury. And as you point out, Dr. Mercola, mercury is a reproductive toxin. Meaning, of course, it can harm the unborn baby. It's a neurotoxin, meaning it can harm the brain. It's a nephrotoxin, meaning it will harm the kidneys. There's no safe level of mercury. So this dentist is playing Russian roulette with your child or you if he or she is giving you a mercury filling. Now, the dentists who don't use amalgam, and that's about half of them now in the United States, they will tell you it's mercury. But the ones using it, they won't tell you. Because what pregnant woman would even remain in the chair if the dentist walks over and says, "Ma'am, here come your here come your mercury fillings."
So that's the central issue. And then even, is it the FDA that has it on their site when they refer to amalgam fillings, they refer to it as silver?
The FDA defends amalgam and says the word silver is because they are silver colored. The FDA knows better. They know they're perpetuating the lie. The Food and Drug Administration has basically been the agent of the American Dental Association in protecting the use of mercury fillings. That protection continues even though 2 scientific panels in a row. Now, these are scientists handpicked by FDA itself. The scientists have come in and, to the surprise of the FDA staff, have told the FDA staff, "You're wrong. You're wrong. You've got to stop amalgam use for pregnant women. You've got to stop amalgam use for children. You've got to do both of them now, and you've got to make sure that every consumer knows and every parent knows that amalgam is not silver, that it's mercury."
So it's a big issue too, because as I mentioned, most of the people in this country do not have an optimal healthy lifestyle and aren't eating the best foods. As a result of that, they're going to have dental decay. Because if you lived in a culture or community or were eating the ideal diet, for the most part, you would not have decay in your teeth. It just doesn't occur in those situations, but that's not what's happening. So we're going to require restorative dentistry. And if we do happen to get these amalgam mercury fillings, you're at a risk continuously, because every time you chew, there's this abrasive component that causes you to volatilize that mercury, and it deposits in your system slowly over time, and it doesn't disappear. It lasts for like 30 years, the average lifespan of the amount of mercury coming out there. So, and it gradually deposits in your tissue and causing loads of problem.
Well, and the American Dental Association wants you to get more cavities. They were taking $1 million a year from Coca-Cola until they were discovered. And they tell you they want reduced cavities. They want more cavities. The World Dental Federation takes money from the Mars Candy Colossus, which is the Wrigley, Mars, the Mars Candy Bar, the Snickers, and all that. They take money from them. So their propaganda is, we want you to eat less sugar, but the candy companies and Coca-Cola would not be shoveling money to the American Dental Association and the World Dental Federation if they really thought the ADA believed it. You never see the ADA doing public service ads saying, eat candy don't eat candy, don't eat sugar, because it's good for business. The more sugar, the more money, and that's why amalgam is used. Amalgam is not a favor to the consumer. The dentist makes more money per chair per day because he can do it fast.
That's an important point, because even myself was confused on this issue, because typically the cost of an amalgam filling is lower than the cost of the alternative safer composite or white filling. Those cost more, but because of the time labor issue, there's more profit in using the
absolutely more money per chair. But for a small cavity, it's not true. These days, as composites prices come down, and it would come down more if there wasn't amalgam. It would be the starting. And everything's a loss leader. As a lawyer, when I practiced general law, I'd do a contract real cheap because I wanted to get the client. And then if something big would come up, I'd have the client. The dentist will do the cavities, will do the fillings cheap because they want to do the big work if the big work is needed for people and their families. So, but the composite is about the same price as the amalgam for the small cavity, which is what children get. The insurance, however, tilts you toward amalgam, because the insurance, Delta Dental Company, was created by the American Dental Association, again, to just have lots of amalgam, more money per chair.
And this Delta Dental Company, that's the largest?
That's the largest, was the largest dental insurer, may still be, but it was created, just like Blue Cross was created by the American Hospital Association, so they would be paid. Blue Shield was created by the American Medical Association, and Delta Dental was created by the American Dental Association. These were not organizations created to help us, they were created to help them. There is a new material. It is not new, but it's newly being recognized after years of showing its success in developing countries, and that's called ART, Dr. Mercola, atraumatic restorative technique. That's the glass ionomer with a technique that doesn't require the drill, doesn't require electricity. It can be done outside the dental clinic. It can be done by dental hygienists. The American Dental Association can't stand it because it costs half as much, can be done by non-dentists. It's being now taught by the Indian Health Service for the rural Native Americans and for other kinds of uses. It could replace amalgam in primary care, and it will replace amalgam in primary care in developing countries, in the lower income countries, if we phase out amalgam, as we can do, because mercury is so toxic that the nations of the world are gathering to write a treaty to phase out all major mercury uses. The nations have recognized, the United Nations has recognized that mercury amalgam is one of the 5 major products with mercury. So on the preliminary draft of the treaty, amalgam is listed targeted for a phase out. Now the treaty has 3 more meetings, 3 more years of work, and all the details to work out, as well as the big picture and small picture. We don't know if we can win this, but we are trying on a world level to protect children worldwide and try to get the nations to agree, let's phase out mercury amalgam entirely. Our next meeting is coming in October, very soon, and we're hoping to get that message across from mercury-free dentists and consumers from all over the world going to Nairobi, Kenya to give our message.
That's great, because so you're acting on an international level, and I'm really pleased to hear this new development in restorative dentistry, the ART with the glass ionomers. Is that something that a consumer or a person in a developed country like the United States use and request from their dentist, or is that only available?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Now, whether a dentist will do it, we don't know. Dentists don't like to do it. They don't use the drill. It doesn't look important. But remember, since they don't use the drill, it's painless. It gets a child wanting to go to the dentist, not afraid of the dentist.
Well, how do you remove the decayed or damaged tissue if you're not using a drill?
They have just little tools.
Oh,
Again, it's the
okay.
small cavity. The child doesn't have time to develop a major cavity.
Okay.
So generally, that would be enough. It's a major problem. ART is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, in developing countries, and really, frankly, it should be true in our urban areas and in our rural poverty like Appalachia, where I'm from, you should be able to have the dental nurse, the dental hygienist, out there in the field. And if something big comes up, you get to the dentist in the clinic. That's how it happens in developing countries. You have a nurse, not a physician, out in these villages, but you get to the physician if it's important. The dentist can do the important stuff. We've got to get the primary care. Frankly, could be done by physicians too, these little cavities. I mean, it's just time for dentistry to realize the amalgam era is over. And if they don't realize it, the world needs to say, we need to get rid of it. But the starting point is with your dentist in your office to say, I know that amalgam is mercury. Do not give it to my child. Do not give it to me. We will not tolerate it. Frankly, you shouldn't go to a dentist that still uses mercury fillings. You should go to a mercury-free dentist.
Well, and the reason for that statement, and it's because it's quite a significant warning, is that there's going to be mercury in that environment, and then as soon as you walk into that room or that office, there's a chance that you're going to be exposed to that, because he may be drilling out a mercury filling on someone.
Oh.
And without proper precautions. And it's a significant issue. A slight tangent here. My diet was not good when I grew up. You know, I love my mother. She's a phenomenal woman, but she wasn't educated in these things. And like most people, you know, in the 50s and 60s, you know, gave me plenty of sweets and sugar. And I literally had about 24 cavities, big, deep cavities that were filled with amalgam fillings. And in the mid-90s, I became educated, watched a 60 Minutes documentary on this, and said, hey, I don't want that dangerous mercury in my mouth. I'm going to have it removed. I promptly went to my local dentist, who was an elder at the church I was going to at the time, and really competent, highly competent dentist, and removed them, but he had no understanding of mercury toxicity. So I had no precautions done. And it didn't have any acute problems, but then my kidneys were damaged by that process, and now I suffer with kidney challenges that, you know, could, if not properly treated, could lead to kidney dialysis for me. So there's a danger for that, and I just want to warn people, if you have these fillings, to not see a regular dentist, because they can technically take it out, but they'll do it at a potential harm and damage that could really devastate your health. And you know, I'm a male, obviously, so I'm not going to be having children. But if I was to have had children, the children could have been seriously damaged, because the mercury could have been deposited straight forward. So please don't do that. I mean, the key thing is prevention. So we're trying to do with our approach. Have people eat less sugar so that you and your kids have less cavities. Then you can use this ART approach. And it's going to be a lot better to do, because if you don't have a deep cavity,